you're joking. You didn't do those things to me. Tell me you're joking. Well, tell me, kill me. Nobody's perfect, but Jesus Christ, no, not here. Tell me you're joking. Just say that you love me, but tell me it's not true. Wouldn't do that to you. I couldn't do that to you, not to you. It's a long way back from here. It's a long way back from here. Such a long way back from here. So far back from here. Tell me you're joking. You didn't do those things to me. Tell me you're joking. Well, tell me, kill me. Nobody's perfect, like Jesus Christ, no, not here. Tell me you're joking. Just say that you love me, but tell me it's not true. Long way back from here. So far back from here. Finish me. Finish me. Finish me.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rock Pal Report podcast. I'm your host, Bill Season Ticket Holder Drew Gear. That's my producer, Chris Kruger. Riding shotgun with us in studio tonight, Mr. Ryan Lasel from Hashtag Sports and the Rock Sports Network. And what I love
You
is
really
that
leaned into that one today, man.
Chris is
You're
really
feeling some kind of way.
Yeah, Chris is really angry about me leaning back in my chair holding my microphone like this. I'm not going to lie, it feels cool. But it feels cool in the way that, like, Fast and the Furious was cool. Like,
I mean, listen,
it's
it's the
the
second.
way-
You guys had me twice in a month, and I'm rubbing off on you, man. You got the mic going. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm impacting your guys' shows now.
I will say this. I think that anybody who takes a microphone and leans back like this is how,
So you're out of focus.
yeah, this is how dorks think cool
Now you're in
guys
focus.
talk. And I think that that's why this happens. Guys, we're here. And in the words of Van Miller, it's Fandemonium. It's Fandemonium here amongst Bills fans this week. And it's hilarious because we were in the doldrums last week.
Yeah.
Everybody was in their feelings. Ahead of the Super Bowl, you couldn't have found a fan base that cared less about the NFL than the Buffalo Bills. I just in talking to our fellow podcasters and fellow content creators, like consumption of product was at an all-time low, right? Across the board, nobody wants to listen to radio. Nobody wants to hear anything about the Bills when they lose the way that they did. And then in a week, it's crazy how much that changes. It's like we as Bills fans got to watch a singular week change the trajectory of our energy about the offseason. It reinvigorated and re-energized a fan base that had the enthusiasm for the Super Bowl, for football in general, stolen from them. Like, do you think that that's fair? Stolen from them, Ryan? It's probably a good way to...
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Chris, what was your appetite last week for Bills content?
Barely there. I did watch I did tell you I did watch the Super Bowl in the basement in the dark with cask strength bourbon. And I didn't turn the game on until it was 7-0 Eagles. And then I was like, all right, cool. Eagles have the lead. And then it was 17-0 and then 24-0 and then 34-0. And it was amazing. An amazing
At
watch.
that point, you start Googling, has there ever been a shutout in the Super Bowl? Or like I did, what's the largest margin of victory in the Super Bowl era? Which,
Well,
by
the
the way, is
last
45
time
points.
we had a blowout in the Super Bowl, it was Tampa Bay over Kansas City.
It is
31-9.
funny. It is funny
But-
thinking about the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs now own the last 2 blowout Super Bowl losses. I now have something to feel better about when it comes to this. But
Yeah, I
Chris,
saw Tom Brady has what? He had 3 Super Bowl losses, and by a combined margin of, I think it was like 15 points.
That's right, 15 points. It depends on what your definition of a blowout is. Mine is 3 scores. So if you're up 17 or more points, it's a blowout.
so before we even get to the Super Bowl talk, though, everybody's week hit a high note, right? Like it started on a high note Thursday before the Super Bowl. You know, I think our entire fan base and every single person who's even casually watched the Buffalo Bills over the last few years got a massive injection of like, oh my God, I love this football team. I love this franchise. When they got to watch their, like, kind of what, I don't think this is hyperbole, the savior of Buffalo Bills football and Josh Allen finally get his due, winning the NFL MVP award.
Yeah, because he probably should have won it last year if you're using the argument that all the Lamar Jackson fans used this year, right? Josh should have won it last year. And it felt like, from a fan perspective, validation, right, of everything that we have been saying for the last 6-7 years. That, yeah, I mean, Mahomes, that guy's really, really good, right? Nobody's going to dispute that. But our guy can go toe to toe with him, right? Like, we've seen him go toe to toe with the best in the NFL. And he got even better this year, again, cut down his turnovers, but this time did it with nobody at the skill positions, aside from James Cook, who's pretty good, right? But another question of, is it scheme or is it player? And the validation of this, this is like, yeah, our guy is in the upper echelon, right? Like, we finally have a guy that is superhuman.
And not just superhuman, but he's not just good in our eyes. I think one of the curses of being a Bills fan has been that we regard our own talent in a certain way. We love our homegrown players and we fall in love with them. And in some cases we do, I don't want to say exaggerate or conflate their talent level when you compare them to other talents around the NFL. I saw in the wake of the Super Bowl performance, somebody say, well, Ed Oliver could do a lot of what the Eagles defensive linemen are doing. And I was like, don't talk to me. I can't talk to you because you're not a reasonable person right now. Josh Allen getting the MVP nod is such a massive accomplishment, not just for him, but for this franchise.
Yeah.
It's validation that this front office has targeted and identified a talent, obtained him, and he's one of the preeminent game-changing talents that exists in the entire NFL. And it's a bat signal for everybody who says, hey, look, everybody can trash Josh Allen all you want. He's an NFL MVP. Do you want to go win a title?
Yeah.
Where do you want to be?
Well, and I think the other thing too is that as I was, drunkenly screaming in the line to get into the Baltimore Ravens game, which you heard me, Drew, right?
Yeah.
Like, I was telling everybody, like, how long had we talked ourselves into these guys, right? Like, I remember talking myself into, hey, maybe that EJ Manuel guy is going to be pretty good when they drafted him. Hey, maybe that, that JP Lossman, he's got an arm coming out of Tulane, man. Kid can sling it. Let's see what he can do. Tyrod Taylor, right? Broke the curse. Maybe we give him another year. Like, how we've done this over and over and over again at my 39 years old. How many quarterbacks have I talked myself into?
Yeah.
And this moment was I'm not just talking myself into this guy.
It was a
right?
referendum.
Like, it's a
on all of
referendum
the
on,
things that we've
yes.
done.
Like, we finally got a guy, evaluated a guy. We said he's one of the best in the league, and now he went out and won an award that indicates that he's one of the best in the league.
I also think that the discourse around him winning the award was delicious. Listen, I'm a petty son of a bitch. Nothing made me happier than seeing how upset Ravens fans got and Chiefs fans got and Eagles fans got and how everybody got upset about Josh Allen winning the award. It made me happy because you're not doing something right unless you're annoying other people in the process. I mean, that's kind of an ethos I choose to live by. Now, I have to say this. Josh Allen winning the MVP was a giant injection of, goodwill towards this football team, towards the weekend, towards the Super Bowl, towards what football is in the wake of that loss to the Chiefs. But also, this is one of the first times where I can say, now I'm a crier. You know, I'm a crier. You saw it.
I saw you cry at Kyle Williams. Yeah, I saw you cry.
Guys, Ryan saw it firsthand. When Kyle Williams came out to lead the charge against the Denver Broncos, I cried. Hand over, I was standing there still, like, the anthem just got done and everybody's standing there. And I'm still standing there with my hat off, just watching Kyle Williams and just tears. Just tears, because in that moment, what I was watching felt special. And so I watched Josh Allen go and win the MVP award. And obviously, I'm not crying because I'm not an idiot, right? Like, our guy's on stage, he's getting applauded, and then he gives his speech, and it's the most Buffalo acceptance speech.
Hell of a speech
I've ever heard.
Yeah, hell of a speech.
Because Josh Allen, in that moment, kind of cemented himself as one of us.
Yeah.
Where it's like, look, I'm not going to take credit for this. I'm not going to take credit. I can't really do this. I'm not great. I'm not glamorous. I'm not this thing. I'm not going to self-aggrandize. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the people who I think are important. I'm going to thank everybody who I think I owe. And then I'm going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, Slick Drew.
And it, like, that got me. Like, the humble manner in which he accepted this award got me.
Yeah, it's validation of what we thought he was the entire time he's been here, right? Like, he ends it with "Go Bills," like he does every interview that he does at post game.
Not just "Go Bills," but be good,
do good, be good. God bless and go Bills.
God bless and go Bills.
Yeah.
And then, you leave that and, I get goosebumps thinking about it because I left that moment and I immediately see on my phone as I'm scrolling Twitter, because I'm just looking for vitriol from Ravens fans so I can just tweet memes and I can be snarky. And I see the video that the Bills social media team prepared for Josh Allen thanking him.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And
that's when I will not be ashamed to admit that I shed a tear.
When
video.
The mother of a son who went there with cancer to Oshai's Children's Hospital says, all of those $17 donations saved my son's life. And I look at that and I go, that's a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
That is a hell of a thing. And that's that guy. There's boxes of Josh's jacks and things around the room. That's that guy right there. None of that happens without Josh Allen simply suiting up and going out there and being who and what he is.
But that's not, but here's the difference, right? That's not that guy.
No.
Right? That's our guy.
Yes.
And that's where, I think that's where the turn comes. And to see those kids and to see, the video of him remembering the kids, right? Like, how many times you see these players go to these things all the time?
So this is what happens. I get choked up when I see the video from the social media team, and my wife kind of wakes up on the couch and I'm standing there just alone in our living room crying like an idiot. And I go to bed. And then the next day I wake up and I'm working from home and I'm walking up the stairs and I'm kind of scrolling something on my phone. And now, like, I remember seeing the selfie video Josh Allen shot after he put, the award ceremony came out. And I remember seeing his eyes and they were red and kind of bleary. And I was like, Jesus Christ, did they just immediately pop a bottle of backstage and just start going to town? I mean, good for him. I'd party too.
Sure.
But he looked bleary-eyed. And I was like, man, they were really getting after it at that NFL awards ceremony. And then the next day I see the video of why his eyes were beat red like that. Because they showed him the video that they had recorded. And to see that he knew those kids by name. Mm-hmm. Like, my kids watched that video. And they were like, Josh Allen knows, like, kids who root for him. And I was like, yeah, buddy, Yeah, he knows kids who root for him. I had a moment after I saw that, like, I had to sit down, and I remember going back down to my desk and pouring a cup of coffee, and I'm sitting there and I'm sipping it. Our franchise has only had two great quarterbacks, Jim Kelly and Josh Allen. And for as much as we can talk about the two Super Bowls and the things that Jim Kelly accomplished, I would be remiss if I didn't point out the fact that Jim Kelly was not if you want to talk about his persona in the community, it took him a while. to come around. And that's probably the nicest way I can say it.
Yeah. He was not a humanitarian in his heyday.
One of my friends...
He was at Big Tree.
One of my friend's fathers was the manager of a bar called No Names, which was a popular spot for the party, popular downtown spot here in Buffalo in the 80s and 90s.
Great bar name, by the way.
And he when you bring up Jim Kelly's name, he bristles to this day. And he says, the only Jim Kelly I remember is the guy who used to come in and do illicit things in my bar and force me to comp thousands of dollars of bar tabs so that people wouldn't call the police. He was abusive. He was abusive to people who worked in service industries that I know personally. He was not the best guy or the best representative of what Buffalo is and can be. But no one's asking you to be, right? That's not what you're supposed to be as an athlete. No one's telling you that as an athlete for the Buffalo Bills, you're obligated to be a carrier of the culture of the city of Buffalo, or that you're somehow supposed to represent us as members of this community well.
Yeah.
That's not an obligation. You play a game.
I mean, you're mandated to do a certain amount, right?
What's crazy to me is that Jim Kelly wasn't that guy for years until he had his own personal tragedy and the city rallied around him. And I think it resonated at that point. And maybe a little bit of what Josh is for us is because of the way the Patricia Allen Fund wouldn't exist if it wasn't for us as a community trying to lift up one of our own in a moment of tragedy. But I can say this, seeing what Josh is, seeing what he is on the football field, and then seeing what he brings to this community. I don't care if he only makes a single Super Bowl appearance in his entire professional career. He is already the best quarterback to ever put on a Buffalo Bills uniform. And I don't think that that's a hot take.
No, absolutely.
And I think that this MVP award was kind of what it took to cement that thing of, look, you're great. You're one of the greatest to ever do it. That's indisputable now. And at the same time, you look at everything else every Bills fan can tell you about the impact that this guy has on the community and our society as a whole. And it goes above and beyond, I think, what you would have expected and what we as a football-loving community have come to know. Yeah,
he's a personification of Bills Mafia. Right. He's a walking example of everything that this fan base has perceived to be. He got, no offers coming out of high school, had to go to JUCO. He stood out as a NFL prospect, but still had all kinds of questions. Right. Like it's his career trajectory has been very similar to what this franchise's trajectory has looked like over the last 25 seasons, and what this fan base has dealt with. Right. And now it's this culmination of MVP. And even the MVP award was a little off base because Lamar ran away with first team All-Pro.
Yep.
Right. Like he won first team All-Pro at a 2-to-1 clip. And then Josh comes in and still wins the MVP. And, I wonder what this will do for Josh going forward. Right? Like you wonder, like in these big moments in the playoffs, ball in his hands, chance to go down and win it.
Does he turn into Kenny Powers
in those situations, or is it now where it's like,
does he embrace his inner Kenny Powers?
Is this
I'm the guy with the ball who can throw it fast to the
right? Is this the validation that maybe he's needed? Right? Yeah. And maybe he's heard people say he's one of the best. He can go toe to toe with Mahomes. All these things that we've said about him. But now that he's won this award, he's like, maybe I am that dude, and maybe it's just not a swagger aspect to it. Maybe there's an intrinsic motivation type of thing, but no more. And I've said this so many times on this show that I've rallied against. You can't let him get to 30 without a Super Bowl, yada, yada, yada. Right. I never have wanted him to win a Super Bowl more than that acceptance speech and that ensuing video of watching those kids talk about that acceptance speech.
Lauren in the comments nails it. She goes, Josh reading in real time, like reacting in real time with no PR person. This isn't a fluff piece that's highly edited. They put a tablet in front of this guy. Surprise, surprise. Here's a thing. And recorded his genuine human reaction. And it was that pure.
Yeah.
And to know that that's who he is, it's like I think about it as a guy who has 2 little kids who, unfortunately, I've indoctrinated into this mess of being a Bills fan. And my kids run around in the living room and argue over who gets to be Josh Allen when they play football. Do you know how much better I feel knowing like that's and I know the whole Chuck Barkley thing. They're not role models, right? They should never, athletes shouldn't be your role models. But if my kids had to idolize a guy, I would much rather have it be Josh than Jim.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a great point too, right? Because we've talked about it in our group chats and stuff before. Like, right, give me Mutant League football, right? Like, I don't need Boy Scouts playing football for my football team. I want to go win a Super Bowl. So if you get a bunch of guys, that are questionable members of society, then I'll teach my kids to idolize other people, right? There's plenty of people doing wonderful things in this world that aren't athletes and not professional athletes.
But it helps.
But goddamn, man, does it help? Does it help when the dude who is right now, according to the media, the best player in the NFL? It's pretty cool that he's a good dude also, right? Yeah. Like, it goes a long way.
And it really he is the embodiment of what we are. You said that earlier, but I've been sitting here thinking about it, and I'm like, you're right, because there's the video of him, crying and, understanding these kids' plight and going out of his way to be a part of their lives and try to help, just use his platform to help make them feel better.
Yeah.
If nothing else, just make them feel better. If I can't comfort you, I can't change your situation, I can at least pick you up a little bit emotionally, and I can show up and I can smile and I can play a game with you, and it'll change your entire life. And for me, it's just an afternoon. I can give you that because I have that to give.
After he's the same guy who and we graduated high school, sent that email to how many coaches in college and essentially just said, just give me a chance. Just watch my video and just give me a chance.
He's charitable. He's always been looked down on. And at the same time, he's fucking crazy. Yeah. He is what we are. And I love every single bit of that. And so watching him be anointed him with Haley Steinfeld, it was perfect.
Yeah.
And he even called it out. He's like, she's my rock. And I go back to that interview Deion Dawkins did in the middle of the season where he goes, when everything's right, he goes, when everything's right, everything's right. He goes, when it's right at home, it's right on the football field. Look at how this woman centers Josh. He's a different human being.
He is. Yeah.
And it's a culmination, and it was a coronation for a guy who's deserved one for a long time. And so you take all of the goodwill that comes out of that, and you inject it directly into our veins a couple days before a Super Bowl that we've all sworn we're not going to watch.
Yeah, yeah.
And guys, we're all liars. Everybody here, let's say it. Chris, who watched the Super Bowl, raise your hand. Guys in the chat, I need a hands up emoji if you watched the game. Don't you lie to me. I need the hand up emoji in the chat right now if you watched the Super Bowl, because we're all liars. And I'll tell you why. It's the Chiefs' fault. They did this to us. We all, as Bills fans, wanted to boycott the game. We all planned on staying home. Iman, Travis, and I were at his house with zero intent on watching the game. He had tuned up a guitar. He had his piano queued up. He had the big Marshall half stack out. We were playing music. I missed the whole first quarter. The whole first quarter. My kids were running around to Iman's house, jamming out. Do it. Chris, we taught them this. Yeah, they're both pretty proficient at it now. It was a great night. There we go. There's the hot. See, the hands up, baby. I knew it. We all knew it. And then here's what happens. My wife goes, the Chiefs are losing. And I go, okay, so what? She goes, no, they're losing bad. But she's like, I'm not a genius at this, but they're getting beat up. And I go, okay, well, if people are getting their asses kicked, I'll come watch that.
I did the same thing. So so we have a family group chat, right, with cousins and uncles and aunts and everything. And I had the game on because I was just, it's football. I told myself I wasn't going to watch it, but it's football and it's the last chance I get to watch it until June. So I'm going to flip on the game. And it was like, oh, he just threw a pick six to Cooper DeJean. And I jumped into my group chat and I was like, guys, you need to change the channel right meow. Like right meow.
Whatever
you need to change
you're doing,
the channel. Yes.
We have to watch this. And that was it.
Yeah.
It was 17-0. And I go, I literally turned into, what's his face? Leo DiCaprio from Django.
Oh yeah.
Where I go, you know what? At first you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Yeah.
You have my attention, Philadelphia Eagles. What are you doing here? What are you playing at?
The joke that Dominique Foxworth said about Cooper DeJean, where he's playing more like DeJean Cooper.
My favorite was the meme of like it was from the movie Road Trip, where the skinny white guy gets with the African American woman, and they go, "This is Cooper DeJean as soon as he gets back to Philly." Yep. That dude is in. He's in. He's getting invited to all the cookouts. Like he's in.
I was bought in on the Super Bowl when they had mentioned that the Eagles had more points than the Chiefs had yards.
Yeah.
I was all right. I'm in the rest of the way. Let's fill this glass up with more cask strength bourbon and ride it out.
Who doesn't? What Bills fan doesn't like watching Mahomes get knocked around?
100%. Like he was all Schadenfreude.
Who doesn't hate it?
It's all,
you know.
Wendy Cruz in the chat. If anything, Josh is the reason why everyone can only believe and cheer for the Buffalo Bills. If it's not if the Buffalo Bills can win the Super Bowl, it's a matter of when. I believe that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a, that's a statement that I think a lot of people believe in now after the MVP. Right. Specifically, it feels that way, right? It feels that way right now. Like this was the best shot. Chris said it before. This was the best shot that they've had at the Chiefs since 13 seconds. And you could argue it's the worst roster that they've had since 13 seconds, right? Like, and they still were almost there. They were a broken play away from giving your MVP quarterback the ball with 1:56 and 2 timeouts left to go down and win the football game, win or tie, right? And that's where we're at. And it feels like for the first time, truly for the first time, because I've been a critic of McDermott's, I've been a critic of everything that's going on. This is the first time that it truly feels like it's not a matter of if.
Yeah, but when?
This team is going to kick the door down because they've got a guy in Josh Allen. When Josh Allen's on your roster, the window is open.
What I love is Steve Nobles in the comments trying to out me for exactly what my night turned into. He goes, I heard Drew had a date with a Wild Turkey Super Bowl night. Listen, a little Wild Turkey 101 might have gotten away from me. I left Iman's house at approximately... I went from being a guy who was not going to watch the Super Bowl to double fisting beers like Stone Cold while relishing in the body language of the Chiefs as they were losing. And then...
The lip from Mahomes after the pick six, that was... I mean, just chef's kiss.
Well, here's what I was going to say. It went from that to Wild Turkey 101 to me leaving at 1:45 in the morning. I didn't leave Iman's house until 1:45 in the morning. Now, I will say this. You want to talk about the hilarious moments in the game? Before we move on, we have to talk about this. Chris, was it Taylor Swift getting booed?
She did get booed. I didn't know about it until after the game, but she did get booed. That was a thing that happened.
I think that right there, if anyone wants to talk about Chiefs fatigue, it's not fake. People are sick and tired of literally everything.
It's just enough, man, right? Like, it's just enough.
So when they did the thing, and that's the worst part, she's a plant. And you know it because the cameras...
She's an industry plant.
The cameras cut to her. And then she stands up and starts waving like, hey, everybody, look, Taylor's here. And instead of the usual fanfare, she got, boo, shut up. No one cares. She goes, what? I'm Taylor Swift. Everyone cares what I do. Not today, lady. Not today. Here's the thing. Chris, if you had to rank the sad Mahomes face, the dazed or just like pathetic looking Travis Kelce, or the Chris Jones fall off the bench moment, which one was your favorite?
Mine was watching Travis Kelce leave the stadium in whatever the fuck he was wearing. I wouldn't even wear that, and I'm a fashionista. He looked like absolute shit.
What I love...
Chris with the coiffed hair wouldn't even wear that. That's how bad it was.
To you, it was the Patrick Mahomes face after he threw that pick six.
Oh my god, dude, that was so good, right? The other shot was him and Kelce standing next to each other, just with that, and then there was a shot of Kelsey with just like the faraway stare.
Oh yeah,
where in his head he's just like, I'm dating a billionaire. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what is going on in this world right now?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah, like, why am I putting myself through this nonsense? I could go home, never work another day in my life, and Taylor will take care of everything for me.
So my favorite was when Chris Jones was watching DeAndre Hopkins. Now, mind you, the pass was a little bit behind him, but DeAndre Hopkins blew an opportunity to catch a first down pass in one of the most hilarious ways. And Chris Jones just grabbed his head and then rolled off the bench and put his forehead on the ground the way you would if you were a drunkard who'd been overserved. He's like, I can't believe this is happening to me. I got to go back out on the field. It's fourth down.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, what has happened to my team? It's like, oh, Chris, they've always been this. They've just been getting away with things.
Right.
Guess what? The well ran dry, bud.
Well, I mean, they finally ran. They ran into a buzzsaw, right? Like, I mean, that Philadelphia team,
34-0. That's not a buzzsaw.
So there is.
You ran headfirst into You ran headfirst into the tornado from Twister that took Helen Hunt's father.
So there was a statistic that I heard this morning because we all know like the Eagles never blitzed, right? They didn't blitz the entire game. I heard a stat today that there have been 6 times in the Super Bowl era where a team has not blitzed once, and all 6 of those teams have won the Super Bowl. So
of course.
So teams that don't blitz are 6-0, and the reason for that obviously is right. You're getting pressure with 4. You can drop 7, makes it a lot easier to cover. But the Chiefs finally ran into a perfect combination of a team with more talent, which I think you could make the argument that Buffalo might have had more talent top to bottom than the Chiefs, but their coaching couldn't make up for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Fangs,
100%. Fangs was a huge addition for the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Like you cannot overstate how big of an addition Vic Fangio was to that Philadelphia Eagles defense.
And it's hilarious, guys, if you still want to be like, if we're still being petty, it's hilarious that he was only in Philly because Miami signed him to a 3-year deal and then fired him after his first year. So this Super Bowl doesn't happen if Miami isn't so inept.
Yeah. Yeah.
If Miami was a normal franchise that operated with like, hey, we have discipline in this house and we recommend that
they
our
didn't even
players show
fire
up
him.
on
He
time.
just left. He's just like, I'm not doing this anymore. like I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to work for this knucklehead. I don't want to coach this team. I don't want to do it.
He goes, you guys don't show up for fucking meetings. You don't talk to each other. It's all a bunch of bullshit and I'm tired.
It's like
and then
that,
he goes and wins the Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, it's like that.
For that performance.
It's like that Shorzy quote, right? Like from Shorzy is like, they don't skate, they don't hit, they don't shoot, they float, right? They don't, and they don't hate to lose. And he's like, they don't want to win. He's like, they don't hate to lose. Like that. I picture that's Fangs on his way out of Miami, right? Like, what did you do to this culture?
So with that in mind, it's hilarious. It was a great night. I had legitimately the first hangover of my, at least the last couple of years. When I say hangover, I mean, I had to go take my truck in for a recall inspection on my
Moon of the cream ale. By the way.
there you go. Cream ale. And he's drinking 12 hours.
I got some Jenny Screamers coming.
He's a Jenny connoisseur. So here's what I love. I am legitimately hungover for the first time in probably 2-3 years. Like, bad. I show up to the dealership to drop my truck off so that they can redo, because there's a recall on my ABS coating for my anti-lock brakes. Obviously, I want to get that fixed living in Buffalo. I get there, and it turns out all of the courtesy shuttle drivers have called off sick because of the Super Bowl. So now I'm stuck in the waiting room, and I immediately just fall asleep.
I'd make him give me a car.
No, I fell asleep. Dude, I went to the waiting room, got a bottle of water out of the fridge, sat down, put one head like this on the edge of the chair, fell asleep. Went straight to bed and woke up with a bunch of 63-year-old men heckling me. A bunch of retirees giving me shit about, oh, somebody enjoyed the Super Bowl last night. I was like, damn it. And I was like, I can't even defend myself.
Did you go to Valley Forge for this?
No.
Valley Forge.
Valley Forge Auto. But I will say, the Eagles' ferocious assault on the offensive line and the quarterback of the Chiefs. I mean, was there anybody watching that as a Bills fan who didn't take a look at that and say to themselves, I'm kind of glad that that's not my team? Like, even for a moment where you're like, I would have loved to have made the Super Bowl. And then as you're watching them not blitz and still just harass Mahomes into having to scramble 40 linear yards to gain 7. It's like, holy shit, they are setting this offensive line on fire. What would we have done? What would have happened to us? Now our quarterback is the better scrambler.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the group chat a little bit.
We might have had better systems
with Mario, right? Like,
Yeah.
because Mario said, "Do the Bills fare any better?" And I think that's worth discussing.
We have a better offensive line.
I do first though, before we get into like what would the Bills have looked like, Chris. This is a really good chat going on. Like, you guys are cruising, man. With the so Drew. Celebrity crushes. So
Hang on,
Chris.
whoa. Hang on. You want to talk about celebrity crushes? Because I see some stuff going on here in the chat. Guys, I saw someone point out, Ryan Tongan points out from Dusk Till Dawn, Selma Hayek.
Yeah, no. So you got like so Chris started it. So
Yep.
Chris started it and said Mandy Moore with his celebrity
crush?
crush from 25 years ago. Super Mexican throughout. I think Selma Hayek.
Yes.
Right. Which
Shocker.
solid pull.
Shocker.
Solid pull. I mean, that's racist, but solid pull.
Super Mexican
Your comment was racist, not his choice of Salma Hayek, but solid pull still. So Drew, celebrity crush, man. Like let's go teenage celebrity crush. We're going back 25 years. It sounds like
Whoa, guys.
Mine hasn't wavered.
Guys,
It's always been Mandy Moore.
I don't even have to think about this. First of all, my first celebrity crush was was Brittany Daniels from Joe Dirt.
Blonde, good pull. Okay.
Blonde riding a horse with fringe tassels and short shorts. Oh my God. As a 17-year-old kid, you could have set me on fire right there and I wouldn't have cared. and then as an adult, it was Diane Lane. Diane Lane was hot. And I don't care what anybody says. Diane Lane is gorgeous. And under the Tuscan sun with that red hair,
what are you doing? You are in your bag tonight.
yes. Now, here's what I think is funny.
So mine was Julie Bowen, specifically Happy Gilmore Julie Bowen. So that was one. And then I'm gonna go. So if you're gonna go, I'm throwing out Marissa Tomei, because my cousin Vinny, Marissa Tomei, can get it to this day. She can get, and now she's Aunt May in Spider-Man. Like, come on, man.
Now here's what I love. I love all of this discourse, but I saw Ryan Tongan, and the reason that I derailed the show to talk about this.
Oh, Ariola Grande has a good poll, which, by the way, fantastic username.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer in Batman Returns, specifically.
Oh my God. Yes. You know what? That might be.
Drew's changing his answer.
That might be 1B. That might be 1B. But here's what I'll say, guys. Here's what I'll say. When you think about what took place in From Dusk Till Dawn, I just want everyone to remember that movie was written by Quentin Tarantino. He wrote every single aspect of that film. He also somehow put Cheech Marin in that movie 4 different times as 4 different characters. He played the drug dealer at the end, the cop at the border, a gang member who shows up to collect the money, and also a vampire character in the bar. Anyways, From Dusk Till Dawn, Quentin Tarantino wrote the film. And then he cast Selma Hayek as the lead vampire / burlesque dancer character. And then he wrote a scene into the movie where one of the 2 main characters she has to take her leg and pour tequila down it, and somebody has to suck it off her toes, and then cast himself as that character. He's out here playing 4D chess to be a weirdo.
Yeah.
God bless him. Now,
yeah, so I do have to give Chris, I appreciate you correcting him. Julie Bowen is not married to RFK. Okay, let's just cover that right out of the gate. So Julie Bowen is
Denise Richards, an undercover brother.
Denise Richards is another good pull. Diane Lane Diane Lane is 60. Watch your tongue. All right.
Spin.
She's not 90 years old.
Spin. You won the award last week and you didn't show up to claim it. You got to
That's because I wasn't on last week.
You got to DM us or you got to message us and let us know where to email you so that I can ship you some of this stuff. Right? Dude, you can't.
I gotta tell you, man, that rub is fantastic. You definitely want to DM.
Here's what I love. I put out a challenge. I say, hey, make me laugh. Somebody name a defensive end that I'm going to see the name of and snort laugh when I go, holy shit, that guy.
That was the challenge.
And Spin just comes out of his bag,
dude. That's a bad game to play with #Nation, man. I'm telling you.
But
like they have a deep bag.
But this is my point. He then doesn't show up to claim his prize, and I go, what the?
Do you know the game that we play on the post game shows?
No.
Okay, so on post game shows, when the Bills win, the last 2 minutes of every live show is just the chat roasting Mario and Paul, and then when I'm on, me. So I'm telling you, man, they can get in their bag when it comes to making the host laugh.
So Spin. What I yeah, see, he goes, I was protesting that you bamboozled us. Here's Spin, rockpowreport716@gmail.com, or just DM us on Twitter at rockpowreport. We'll talk about the variety. I'll get your address. I'll ship you something nice. Now, I want to change a little bit of direction here because recency bias. Here we are talking
male celebrity crushes.
Ooh, Pedro Pascal. Gotta be, right? Gotta be Pedro Pascal.
If you're not talking about Pierce Brosnan, get out of my face.
Okay, so Pierce Brosnan might have been like he might have been like the 25 years ago, right? GoldenEye, the James Bond, Pierce Brosnan.
GoldenEye James Bond.
Chris brings up the topic, but is immediately uncomfortable because we're going down this rabbit hole.
Yeah,
right?
Chris thought we were kidding.
Chris thought he was being funny.
Chris, you don't think I'm gonna go down this road?
Chris, I'll pull you down into the muck and beat you down at my level, sir.
We all know the answer is Dane Cook. After facial surgeries.
After facial surgery? So yeah. I would agree with what was the show? So the Superstore? Was that the movie he was in? Employee of the Month.
I have it on DVD over there. Month.
Like that Dane Cook, might be in contention, but.
So here's what I'll say. Recency bias, having watched the Super Bowl and the way that the defensive line of the Eagles dominated the Chiefs, we can all say it. They won the game. The defensive line won the game.
I think it was the trenches. Right?
Sure.
The Eagles won the game in the trenches because that offensive line as well. I mean, absolutely neutralized a guy in Chris Jones and knocked him out of the game with that neck injury on the tush push, where he was successful at stopping Josh Allen and Jordan Mailata and crew, and like that was impressive. What they did to that defensive line of the Chiefs, because that was a good defensive line as well.
Jeremy Rogers, Sean Connery from '68, Dirty Work reference. I love Dirty Work.
Yeah, I mean, good pulls from the chat. Sean Connery from '68.
You guys are hilarious.
You got to call out on Brad Pitt. Absolutely, man. Like, let's get some stakes going with Matthew McConaughey. Like, who says no to that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, get a hacky sack going with Matthew McConaughey. A little, some edibles.
All right.
Some edibles and a steak, man. Like, sign me up for that.
Matthew McConaughey
Harrison Ford.
Mud.
Matthew McConaughey in Mud. Yeah,
Mud,
good pull.
Excellent film.
I like Ryan Rhodes. George Lazenby. George Lazenby stunk. Dude, he wasn't a hunk. You get him out of here.
I'll say this, though. So Harrison Ford, to his credit, man, if you guys have not watched the show on Apple TV, which is called Shrinking, Harrison Ford's a funny dude, man. Like, he's got such great comedic timing that you would not expect from a guy like him.
We saw that in Anchorman 2.
Yeah, we did see that a little bit. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Timothy Dalton was way better looking than George Lazenby. I will die on that hill.
Timothy Dalton. So you're going, it's Timothy Dalton. Yeah, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
So between Timothy Dalton and Diane Lane, like you got, you got to type, Drew. You got to type.
I got to type.
We have not derailed the show like this in a long time.
Is what I mean. Hey, when you get good commentary going in your chat, man, you got to show them some love.
You got to go with it.
Yeah.
So now, Ariel Grande, Harrison Ford looks amazing at 500 or whatever he is right now in the Yellowstone show.
Harrison Ford's not on Yellowstone. So this is the second time. So first, Julie Bowen is not married to RFK. And you're confusing, I think, Harrison Ford and Kevin Costner. So I think Ariola Grande, you need to go and kind of like write yourself with some celebrity trivia there.
Let's get back to football. So with the recency bias coming from the Super Bowl being that every Bills fan is calling the radio station and tweeting about how like in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, Chris, last week we did a show about how the trade market was kind of materializing and there was a lot of pass rushers available. And it's been the like kind of en vogue thing to talk about. Let's get better at pass rush. And then you watch this Super Bowl and that discourse explodes. And now, like, it becomes a real part of how fans not just think, but expect the offseason to go.
Yep.
And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind. Whenever you get frustration, I remember I was assigned to listen to some books on tape about how I can slow down my frustration with some of my coworkers professionally. And one of the things that they drilled into my head was, frustration is born from expectation. Unmet expectation is where frustration comes from, right? Mm-hmm. And so angsty fans who are going to find themselves really hurt that the Bills didn't do the thing they wanted them to do in 2 months, it's going to come from a place of they watched this Super Bowl and said, oh my God, do you see? This is a pass rush. We need to get a pass rush and we need to do whatever it takes to find it. Now, when you think about the NFL season and the calendar and the way this is going to line up, a lot of things still have to be decided. In less than a week from today, franchise tags can be placed, and that's going to directly impact the free agent market. Mm-hmm. It's going to impact the trade market because there's going to be players who have flat out said, I don't want to play here anymore. There's going to be guys coming up on contracts that are due who are going to get tagged like T. Higgins. T. Higgins knows he wants to play somewhere else, but the team won't let him, or at least not without getting their pound of flesh. Transition tags and franchise tags start in a week. The following week, the NFL is going to announce the official 2025 cap number. Last year, it was the week before the Combine. Yep. And Brandon Beane talked about this in his end-of-season press conference. It's bullshit. It's horseshit that a multi-million-dollar NFL or like an organization like the NFL doesn't know how much they're going to raise the salary cap, that they can't tell GMs. You and I have worked in finance capacities. We know about tolerances. So even when you have projections and forecasts, you build in a certain percentage that you say, well, I could be wrong by 4% either way. But that's okay because I can at least give you a number as a projection and it's probably close.
Right. Forecasting is important, right?
Forecasting. You mean to tell me that the NFL is incapable of forecasting what the cap increase might be? I think that's horseshit that all of these GMs, and it's not just for the Buffalo Bills, because Brandon Beane could do a lot of things and he could do a lot of back channeling right now today if he knew how much cap space he was going to have.
So you're surprised that the league that is still measuring first downs using 60-year-old men in chains can't forecast from a finance perspective. So, I mean, come on.
This is true. This is true. But what I find crazy about this is that it not only screws over teams like the Buffalo Bills, but it also harms teams with new GMs and new coaches like the New York Jets, who are like, hey, we have this significant cap issue to deal with, and we have a lot of shit to clean up before we can figure out how we're going to attack the offseason. It would be nice to know what we have in the bank account before we start doing a remodeling project.
I think we can both agree, though. Fuck the Jets.
Well, yeah, I don't care what happens to them. I'm actually happy it's happening. Last year's increase was 13%. The biggest increase ever at $30 million. Now, I don't expect it to be that big, but I think it's going to be in the ballpark of $20 million.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that's been pretty standard.
And so if it is a 10% increase, then what you're talking about is that every team that might have to lose a player could probably keep them for a high salary.
Sure.
And that's why this information is important, because for every person screaming about how, well, why haven't they traded for, why isn't Brandon Beane trading a first round and second round pick to the Raiders for Max Crosby?
Or the Browns.
Or the Browns for Myles Garrett.
So there was a question at the very start of the chat, and then I know it looks like Wendy Cruz brings it up again about someone from the Browns wanting to go to the Bills. So I mean, do we envision, like, and maybe we're going to get into it later in the show, you kind of keep your agenda close to your vest here for those who want to peek behind the curtain. Like, Drew's got an entire Word doc.
Share notes.
Yeah,
anymore.
Drew's got an entire Word doc. He used to send these to me, and now he just, like, wants to catch me off guard. But a lot of what he says on these shows, just peek behind the curtain.
He used to
pay no
send those
attention
to
to the
me,
man.
too.
Yeah, like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Like, Drew reads a lot of what he's saying, right? Like, he does a good job of prepping himself. I am notoriously a non-prepper, so he's just stopped sending me these notes. So are we going to get into, like, who are the Bills going to sign in the offseason?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
then I will hold my comments until that point in the show.
So you take a look at the way that this calendar is going to break out, right? Like, if you think about it, you've got the combine, you've got free agency, you've got the NFL draft. There's a ton of action items in terms of roster building ahead of the Buffalo Bills. And they have a lot of mechanisms to field a more competitive roster than they did in 2025. The one that fell 1 yard and 3 points short. Like, that's it. You could have gone to a Super Bowl had it not been for 1 yard and 3 points.
Or a Samaje Perine broken.
Yeah. Yeah, that one.
That's why he got dapped up by Mahomes after the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's why he dapped him up.
Wait,
He was like, hey, thanks.
he didn't.
Thanks. So I guess everywhere I go, everyone's talking about how we're screwed if we don't make a big swing and we don't do it fast. The problem is no team is going to do it fast because they're going to slow play telling every team how much cap space they have. So you're going to wait at least another 2 weeks minimum before you hear about any trade movement. It will be 2 weeks minimum before any rumors of like real deals being in place, not just speculated interest.
You think 2 weeks? That's soon.
No. This is when the speculation will start because they'll go, okay, here are the teams who actually have the cap space to take on a Max Crosby, to take on a Myles Garrett, to go do these things and still afford a package of picks that would appease the team giving that player up.
Yeah, so I think so the speculation has already started. Right, we've already seen the articles of who's the best fit for Cooper Kupp, who's the best fit for this and that.
Yep.
I think what you're talking about is when the cap comes out. That's when the Bills media will start to speculate. Right, that's when your cover ones will start to speculate because we'll start crunching numbers and saying this is how they fit it under the cap and stuff. The actual rumors won't start until probably a couple weeks before the draft, where they're like, you know, it sounds like the Titans are shopping the number 1 pick. It sounds like the Bills are willing.
And this is where it gets interesting because you have to think about this in terms of what's a priority, right? And also that there's multiple ways to skin a cat. There are multiple ways to get the thing that we all as fans want. And I don't know if we are all on the same page as far as how to get there. So I will say this. Watching the Eagles dismantle the Chiefs has taken the bonfire that was, hey, the Bills need a better pass rush, and just dumped gasoline all over it. It's now burning down our house. And the question is, first of all, Chris, is pass rush still the biggest offseason priority?
After watching the Super Bowl, yes.
Boom. See? Now, Ryan, more pragmatic than Chris. Is it still the biggest offseason priority? What about the chat? What do you guys think?
I mean, I think so, but I think that they've had to shore up the defensive line for quite some time.
Okay.
I mean, they absolutely have to figure out how to get pressure against Mahomes. You know, he's like everybody else when you can get bodies around him in the pocket. And if you can do that with 4, we saw what happens, right?
Yeah.
We've seen what happens. Every great quarterback, the Giants did it to Brady, right? The Eagles did it to Mahomes. The Bucks did it to Mahomes 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Like, that's how you beat these guys. That's how you beat Josh, right? Like, that's how you keep Josh out of the game is you bring pressure at just the right moment and you get someone in his face where he can't make a play.
I think what's going to end up happening this offseason is via trade free agency is the path we will go down to improve our defensive line. And then I think a close second, which will be safe for the draft, will be defensive backs.
Well, and this is where we talked earlier tonight in the pre-recorded show that we do before we go live. We talked a lot about the new coaching additions to the staff and how development is very clearly on their mind because every single new entity that they brought in has developed Pro Bowl, All-Pro talents, star talents at their various positions, whether it's Ryan Nielsen on the defensive line, whether it's, I don't
Pellegrino.
want Pellegrino. I almost called him Portillo. Puntillo was a basketball coach of mine. Whether it's the defensive backs coach, whether it's the special teams coordinator, they've all overseen the cultivation of Pro Bowl and All-Pro talents. And so in that way, there you see like a movement to say, hey, we're going to get young at a bunch of stuff. Let's get some guys in-house who can help coordinate some of the growth that we're going to need, because we've clearly lacked it.
Well, and I think to Chris's point, right? Like there's a return on investment that I think you have to be realistic about if you're Brandon Beane. Like, how successful have you been with first and second round picks in recent years, right? So are you better off
taking that pick,
taking that and trading
it, baby?
Right.
Let's go. Fuck the picks. Let's get this out of here.
And then at the same time, how successful have you been in the mid to later rounds on defensive backs?
Bang.
You've got some pretty good defensive backs in the later rounds, right? Like Christian Benford. You've gotten guys like Jamarcus Ingram, who looks pretty good. You've got Dane Jackson, who's looked pretty good. Even Taron Johnson was, a mid round pick. He was a day 3 pick. Cam Lewis has been a pretty good player for you. He was an undrafted free agent, right? Like, you've done a good job so far. You've got guys established, right? You've got guys in that you can pencil in as your starters. So you're really trying to shore up and create challenges at certain positions, free safety being one, because, it does rat move in the box, like those types of discussions you're going to have. But you have to be realistic if you're Brandon Beane, right? And you have to own your successes and failures, just like you as a manager or I as a manager have to accept our successes and failures and just say, I struggle to draft in the first round because I'm too worried about need, and I'm not enough like a Howie Roseman. Yep. Right? Like, Howie Roseman doesn't draft for need.
He just goes, oh, this guy rules.
He's just like Jalen Carter. He fell to me like, I don't need a defensive lineman, but fuck, if you're going to give me Jalen Carter, right? Like, I'll take him.
He's that guy. And everyone's ambushing, and they're like, no, you can't.
No, Howie, not another defensive lineman. And he's going, I got rings, baby. So, yeah, I mean, like, Beane has to be realistic about what he can do in the early rounds. And I mean, the harsh reality of it is, I mean, can we go back? How far back do you have to go to find the last first or second round pick that's been an impactful player for this team? Is it Josh?
It's probably
is it Josh?
Yeah, it's probably Josh.
I mean, that's a long time to go.
And so this is where, if we've decided that this is where we have to go, right? Like, we have to try to find a way to make this. Oh, here we go. Yeah, no, there we go.
I mean, okay, Osiris Torrance. Right, but he was a first round talent that fell like at a need position.
Kyer Elam, guys.
I mean, James Cook, but again, are we talking scheme or are we talking player? Like, how good is James Cook? I've seen in the chat a couple times. Like, is James Cook $15 million a year? I don't think I give James Cook.
How good?
I'm drinking Natty Light. Thanks, Mark.
How good would that 22 Class be if we ended up getting Trent McDuffie?
Oh. Yeah, I mean, don't even get me started, right? Like, look, like, or had you not been, and listen, I was one that supported it, but had you not been reactionary on Matt Araiza, right? Like, what is that like? So now you're talking about if you had gone McDuffie instead of Elam, and you had not been knee jerk on Matt Araiza, which I had supported at the time based on the news that came out. But now you've got your first 7 picks that are legitimate starters, right? Like Matt Araiza, don't get it twisted, right? He was a starter in the Super Bowl. For a team. So, yeah, I mean,
it's a hell of a thing. And so now,
but like Greg Rousseau, fine, right? Like Boogie Basham, you wound up trading him. You didn't get much.
So what I want to do is I want to take this conversation in a little bit different direction as we try to round out the show. I mean, hell, we can do this for as long as I want to because it's.
We spent a lot of time on celebrity crushes.
I'm not gonna lie, celebrity crushes was hilarious.
It's what the fans wanted, Chris. You got to give the fans what they want.
What about Creed Humphrey going 2 picks? Yeah, guys.
Can we not talk? Can we not do the Creed Humphrey thing?
Can we do this? Can everyone in the chat right now do me a favor? I want you to tweet at Greg Thompson from Cover One and say, hey, Drew wants to know what about Creed Humphrey. That's it. That's the only thing you have to say.
Do it to Mario too for #Nation. Tweet at Mario because Mario will give you the you don't draft Creed Humphrey when you've got Mitch Morse on the roster.
Tweet at Greg Thompson. Rockpile Report wants to know what about Creed Humphrey now. And that's it. And just watch the implosion. I'm going to get an angry DM and it'll be the funniest thing in the world. I played my clip of me talking to Greg about it for his cousin, and he goes, I've never heard Greg raise his voice like that before. He goes, he's legitimately never yelled in front of me. He goes, what did you say to him? I go, you have no idea how much I've antagonized him. And I'll never stop. So this brings up the question. Everyone says better pass rush, and this is the idea I want to leave everybody in the chat, everybody who's watching live, everybody who's listening at home in the aftermath. When you say we need to get a better pass rush, what exactly do you mean? Is it defensive end or defensive tackle? What needs to get better? Because you can just say, oh, we need a better pass rush. That's so ambiguous. Let's get granular about this and talk about what the team might actually have to improve on in order to make this thing work. You want to replicate what the Eagles did, but what does that cost? What does it take? Where do you have to invest? Now, Ryan, actually, let me start with Chris because he'll have the shortest answer out of the two of us. Chris, where would you rather spend your money? Defensive tackle, your money, your draft picks, whatever it is. Defensive tackle or defensive end?
Well, let's go into it with all of the research that I've done on this topic. I mean, we've seen there's been tweets and people even in the chat because I brought it up with my sign trade for linemen, draft cornerbacks, that this is without a doubt one of the deepest defensive line. I think Daniel Jeremiah said he's got 24 defensive linemen listed as starters in the NFL. I just think at this point where you have Josh, if you can get a Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, a Myles Garrett, you pull that trigger and you bring in the experience. That's what I'm going to want.
Okay, so you want the defensive end pressure. You want the sack artist, the guy who goes up against tackles.
I want the experience, people that have established in the league, whether it's inside or outside.
Oh, but you don't care. You're position agnostic. Okay, that's good to know.
I want.
Ryan,
give me the experience.
Ryan, what do you think about position? Let's start there.
Yeah, so I think
inside or outside.
I think you've got Ed Oliver, right? Ed Oliver's a pretty good player. You've got Dwayne Carter, who's shown that he's probably going to develop into a pretty good, and I go back to what.
Hopefully, Ryan Nielsen can work some magic here.
What would that Ed Oliver and Harrison Phillips defensive tackle formation look like this year, right? If you can get Ed Oliver in a situation where he's got another big body next to him that's going to absorb, some of the attention and going to allow him to work a little bit more one-on-one. So
Spin has a great, this is a great idea, and I'm going to talk about this in a second. He goes, go get the edge rusher in free agency or trade and grab a one tech in the draft.
Yeah, I think
there's opportunities to do this. I'm just curious to see how you feel.
I appreciate Spin saying that because that's kind of the route that I was going, right? Like, I think you've got two guys that you can plug in as starters in that interior next year to start. What you don't have is you don't have a guy that's going to go make a play on the defensive end, at the defensive end position.
No.
Right? Rousseau, he's going to be back for one more year, but what does that mean, right? Like, Epinesa is probably going to go. That's fine. Smoot, whether he's back or not. Like, to me, go get a guy that's going to be a game wrecker. And, based on the price tag, I don't know that that's Myles Garrett. Like, I got into a little bit of a conversation with Nate Geary on Twitter about whether it's Myles Garrett or whether it's Max Crosby. I think for what you're going to have to pay, I'd be more inclined to go Max Crosby because Myles Garrett's 29, right? Like, look at what Khalil Mack did. Like, when the Raiders traded for Khalil Mack, he had one good season and then he fell off. And he didn't have another good season until 2023. So he had like 3 or 4 down years after that. These guys just reach a certain point, right, where they stop being impactful. And you can talk about like off-ball impact and, plays that they make that they don't make that they're impactful on. I would rather go get, and the reason I say this is because Max Crosby is not only a game wrecker, but he's a guy that plays every snap. Yeah. He's out there every single down. Like I think there was
the lack of rotation.
There were 17 games
impressive.
Last year, and I think 8 of them he played 100% of the defensive snaps. Right? Like, and what does that do for a guy like Nielsen and Babich to be like, Max is going to plug in at the left side. I need to worry about my rotation on the right side. Like, how much flexibility does that give those guys?
Now, here's what I'll say. For my money, having watched the Super Bowl, The thing that fucked over Mahomes all night long was that he had no pocket to step up into.
Sure.
The edge rushers and Josh Sweat and those guys were out there doing their job, and they'd collapse the tackle box. And, you know, I love the video of Travis Kelce just Olay blocking Jalen Carter.
Yeah, and I guess I'll disagree a little bit because I think there were lanes for Mahomes to run up the middle. I think the issue with Mahomes and why one of the reasons that I said to Mario that I thought the Bills would have been a little bit more successful. Josh is quick enough to get to those gaps in the middle.
Yeah.
Right. And there were gaps in the middle. There were lanes there. Josh is quick enough to get there. And then if Josh didn't get there, there were a couple where Mahomes just kind of like dragged down. Josh doesn't get dragged down in those situations, right? Like he breaks those tackles.
But so my point is, every time he tried to climb a pocket, there was no pocket to climb to because the defensive tackles were just collapsing everything. Philly's DTs were collapsing that thing. Like they literally made Creed Humphrey look like Apollo Creed. Mm-hmm. And it was bad. Stunts were devastating. They weren't picked up and they were just executed perfectly. Everything was timed. Like it was just relentless, physical, but disciplined football. Nobody overrushed. Nobody overran their lane. Everything they did was well coached, and it was perfectly on time. You don't see that from a Bills defensive line.
Well, I mean,
so maybe
Vic Fangio's a hell of a coach, man.
So maybe we'll fix that with some of the additions we've made to the coaching staff. But what I will say is we've watched plenty of games where our defensive ends have gotten the pressure, and it didn't make a difference.
Sure.
Right? Like that 13 seconds game. We had all the pressure in the world, just no sacks to show for it. And Patrick Mahomes continued to throw the football. I think that a better interior pass rush would help build off of what we already have and probably are stuck with if we don't swing for the fences and do what everybody wants and make a Max Crosby trade or a Myles Garrett trade or whatever you have. That said, there's a reason that defensive tackles are paid so much less than defensive ends. Like, I just want to talk about this. Like, I did some research. Interior defensive line trades. Do you know that Richard Seymour might be one of the most impactful ones of all time?
Oh, they got a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Richard Seymour was even a guy that played outside inside, right? Like, he wasn't a standard inside guy.
No.
So, like, he's not a Vince Wilfork.
There were 0 defensive tackle trades in the 2024 season for guys who were starters. 0. A couple backup level guys traded at the end of camp in August, but there were 0 trades for starting caliber defensive tackles. None. Jordan Phillips, John Ridgeway, like these were the guys who were being traded when you're talking about that. Historically, defensive tackle trades haven't cost much because star defensive tackles don't get traded. You don't, because when you land a Dexter Lawrence, when you land a Chris Jones, you never let that guy go because he's special. Because interior defensive line, like having them on deals, you just re-sign them and you re-sign them and you re-sign them because they're special.
Yeah, I saw somebody tweeted at, I think it was at me after the Bills game when I was lamenting about, you know, the missteps of McDermott and, you know, all that. He said, well, we just need to go get a Chris Jones. And that'll fit. And I go, oh, yeah. Like
he talked about it.
That's easy to do, right? Like, let's just go get a Chris Jones.
Brandon Beane literally talked about him by name in his end of season press conference and said, these guys don't just grow on trees. And even then, Chris Jones wasn't Chris Jones until his 3rd season in the NFL. He was a slouch for his first 2 years. So it's one of those things of, the interior of the defensive line is hard to shore up. And it's why, like, you think about the Albert Hainsworth and maybe even though it might be a sore subject, Star Latule's of the world.
What about Mark Anderson?
Every team takes a swing at the interior of the defensive line, and they spend a lot of cash. They spend a lot of capital. In a year where everything is so deep at that position, why would you try? Right? Like, you defer to the draft. You want to find your potential star and starter that way. So then you look at defensive end trades. Last year, the Jets to the Broncos, John Franklin Myers, a 6th round pick. Eagles to Jets, Hassan Reddick for a conditional 3rd. Barely played because of the contract dispute. The Patriots to the Falcons, they traded Matt Judon for a 3rd round pick And he wasn't all that proficient down there in Atlanta. None of those players moved the needle, but 2 of them cost you a day 3 pick. There will be no bargain shopping. If you go to try to trade, if you're the fan who's going, I need my GM to go trade for a defensive end, then what you're doing is you're basically resigning not just this draft, but the next draft and probably a couple middle round picks to sacrificing what we could do to build depth for this roster. And I'm not saying it because I don't think we should do it. I'm saying it because I want you all to understand the opportunity cost. I've looked at the numbers, right? None of those players moved the needle, but they cost meaningful picks because you found Trey Hendricksons. You found Dwayne Carters in the 3rd round. You found meaningful Teron Johnsons in the 4th round. Gabe Davis's, Matt Milano's in the 5th round. These picks that you're going to package up and ship off so that you can go get one player, there are building blocks there if you can coach them appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, you're not in a, as much as Brandon Beane wants to try to spin this, right? Like, you are not in a 3 to 5 year plan. No. Right? You've got the MVP of the league who's 28 turning 29. He'll be 29 when kickoff. You go win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if that means I'm going to give a first and next year's 3rd and this year's 4th to go get Max Crosby, and I don't know, right? Like, go follow other guys that are going to break down what the actual picks are. I don't give a shit enough, right?
No,
like,
I'm not going to
go follow someone else who's gonna nitpick
potential cost on the scale,
right? Like go someone else go talk to somebody else who's going to use the Jimmy Johnson scale to figure out what these picks are worth, right?
I'm too busy studying Diane Lane's hair.
But at the end, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, right? Like, you've got Josh. The window's open to go get Josh, to go win a Super Bowl. Go win a goddamn Super Bowl. I don't care if you can find another Terrell Bernard in the 4th round or in the 3rd round who's going to turn into your middle linebacker in 3 years, right? Josh doesn't have 3 more years.
Yep.
In 3 years, Josh is going to be 32 years old. What does a 32-year-old Josh Allen look like? I don't know, but I know a 29-year-old Josh Allen's good enough to go win a goddamn Super Bowl. So go get him a guy on the other side of the football that's not going to give up a touchdown or a field goal on 77.5% of non-kneel down possessions, right? Like, the last 5 years, you've been victimized by these high-flying offenses that are averaging 4.5 points per non-kneel down possession. Go get a guy that's going to rip Patrick Mahomes down from behind and maybe cause a fumble or knock him in the face like Jalen Carter did. Like, go get a guy that's like, when Patrick Mahomes walks out onto the field, there's a little less swagger in his walk because he knows that Myles Garrett's coming for him, and he knows that Trey Hendrickson's coming for him, or he knows that whatever's coming for him. Set a position. How long did the Jets do it, or like with Revis, right? Set it, Patrick Surtain. Set it and forget it.
Yep.
Right.
Like
go
Ronco.
Go get a defensive end. Go get a defensive end. Go get a defensive end where you set it and forget it. And if you want to keep Von Miller, or he restructures, or you want to keep Greg Rousseau, let them rotate.
The
right?
best part is,
like, go get a guy that's going to help your superstar MVP quarterback win a goddamn Super Bowl.
now if we trade for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, I'm just going to always refer to them as Ronco.
Yeah.
They are the Ronco. The set it and forget it. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Set it and forget it.
That's right. Set it and forget it, man.
So, and you're not wrong, because if you look at the defensive end market, like, if you were to try to go to free agency, somebody said it. Hey, a Spin, I think, was like, hey, go to free agency and fill this gap. Here's what you've got. Here's what's out there. Chase Young, they're already talking about him getting $17 million a year, which I think is hilarious. For what? Less than 6 sacks?
Oh. I'd rather pay Greg Rousseau $17 million.
I will pay Greg Rousseau 17 before I pay him.
Yeah.
Josh Sweat.
He'll be back.
He's had
back.
11 sacks, 6.5, and 8 sacks. There's no way Philly doesn't resign him.
He'll go back.
Hassan Reddick. looking for a new home, but probably a 1-year deal so he can cash in. But he's already 31 years old.
Yeah, I mean, he's Leonard Floyd, right?
Yeah.
Like he's the new Leonard Floyd. He's the new
And we did
Yannick
that.
Ngakoue, right?
And
Like
we did Leonard Floyd, and it worked for a year.
you didn't have anybody on the other side.
Sure.
Because Von Miller went down.
Sure. So now maybe this works. Also, Khalil Mack. Do you know that you brought him up? He's a free agent. He was super productive last year.
Yeah, and he's 34.
Yeah.
Right? Like
So maybe he comes at a cheaper premium than everybody else.
Oh, I mean, don't think I haven't pitched it, right? Like he played college ball in Buffalo. Like, you know, hey, come on home, let's go win a chip, man.
And if you want to get cute, Malcolm Kuntz. Malcolm Kuntz, if you're feeling froggy and you think you can coach him up.
Fun name.
There's a guy coming off an ACL tear for the Raiders, for Bills fans who are unfamiliar with the name. He had 8 sacks in 2023, and 2024 was supposed to be his coming out party, and then he tore his ACL in the preseason. He's now had a whole year off, and now he's gonna what? Like, he took a year off, he's gonna recover, and in 2 years, this year or next year...
Yeah, we saw what Von Miller was off the ACL, right?
He could fight, but this kid's also young.
Yeah, that's true.
So this guy could come back and round into form, and if you're the team that bets on a 2-year deal on him, you could be getting the next Von Miller on a pittance. But it's a gamble.
You know who all those guys, I mean, Khalil Mack, Kuntz, like, you know who they would look really good next to?
Who?
On the other side of the line of Myles Garrett or Trey Henderson.
Well,
Max
exactly,
Crosby, right? Like,
Exactly.
like these guys are all fine choices.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an off ball rusher or an offside rusher, a weak side rusher, or a rotational guy to rotate in with Greg Rousseau. But these are not guys that are going to solve the problem for you. And the problem is you can't get after the quarterback in crunch time.
And for everybody out there who's in the chat going, oh, we'll just go to free agency, I want to outline for you just how bereft of talent. So those are your free agents. Like, that's it. There's only 4 free agent defensive ends or edge players in PFF's top 40.
Yeah.
And 3 in the top 38, which is nuts.
Because good pass rushers don't hit free agents.
They don't hit free
They
agency.
have to come through trade.
When you look at the defensive tackle market, right? At least talent you'd want to pay a premium for, which, we'll do a whole free agency show ahead of, March. BJ Hill is your biggest name. He's the biggest name on the market, and nobody knows who the fuck he is. It speaks to the scarcity of talent that could earn him double-digit salary in a year where I don't think he deserves it. He's a one-tech. He's basically Star Lotulelei, except properly priced.
Yeah.
That's what he is. Philly could let Milton hit the market, but they won't.
They won't.
They'll pay him.
Yep.
Philly's
going to have to make some decisions, right? Because Bond's a free agent.
Jordan
Sweat's
Davis?
a free agent. Jordan Davis is a free. Like, they're going to have to make some decisions, and therein lies.
Now, if you're the Buffalo Bills, you could say, hey, Jordan Davis, he was our draft crush. He's an anchor. Can we go get him?
But therein lies the issue with building a team the way that the Eagles have built a team. But who gives a shit because they won the Super Bowl?
They won a Super Bowl.
Who get like
Puna Ford.
Sell the team.
Hey guys, Puna Ford's available.
Sell the team and move them to Mexico City if they win a Super Bowl, man. I don't care what the next 5 years looks like, right? Like, go win a chip.
I love the fact that we're able to have this conversation. Realistically, nothing that's out there on the market is going to move the needle. It's not going to get you to where you want to go if you just try to go the free agency route, and you're going to overpay. No matter what it is, you're going to overpay for subpar production to an old player.
You want to hear something gross? And I don't know if you were going to cover it. Chris, you want to hear something gross?
Yeah, I do.
Bill, what on the offensive side of the ball do you think the Bills have to address?
Ooh,
do you think maybe they need to upgrade from
maybe a wide receiver?
Yeah.
I don't know what role.
Yeah,
within
wide
receiver.
So if you want like sicko mode stuff, go look at the free agent wide receivers out there. Because after T. Higgins, it's like Christian Kirk. Like that might be the best free agent wide receiver available after T. Higgins. Like it is a disgusting.
Didn't he go to Mexico with Josh Allen?
It is, yeah. It is a disgusting wide receiver free agent class, and there again is the issue. We've spent the entire show talking about the defensive side of the ball. You got to go get Josh some weapons.
But you don't. But there's nothing out there.
It's T. Higgins. It's Amari Cooper. and then it's a bunch of Christian Kirks.
And so this
Right?
is
Like,
where, guys,
Can I interest you in a Robert Woods?
for all of you who are pounding the table for, I need a better Buffalo Bills in 2025. You have no idea how difficult this is going to be. This is going to take, if Bean finds a way to craft a team that goes out and has the run that this year's team had and makes it to an AFC title game while improving the weaknesses of the roster, it will have been his magnum opus.
I thought
way,
this year was his magnum opus.
And oh, by the way, like, probably should start thinking about a long-term deal for Terrell Bernard if you want to keep him around. Probably should start thinking about a long-term deal for Khalil Shakir if you want to keep him around.
Benford.
Do you give a long-term deal to Greg Rousseau? You got to lock up Benford. Josh Allen, who just won the MVP, probably wants some type of a pay increase. Like, maybe, right? Like, maybe he doesn't want to be paid as the 9th highest paid quarterback in the NFL coming off of an AFC title game and an MVP win, right? Like, so these are things that you're dealing with in Brandon Beane, that it's not just as easy as I pound the table to go trade for Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, right? Because it's not as easy as that.
No, it's not. None of this is going to be easy, guys.
And there's a reason why no one's ever three-peated. There's a reason why, Brady won 7 of 10, and
there's a reason John Rocker's going to fight Patrick Mahomes Sr. on Rough and Rowdy.
But there is a reason that we went to 4 Super Bowls in a row and didn't win any of them.
Before free agency looked like what it looks like, right? Like that, that's not to be lost on these. Like, free agency wasn't what it is now.
Yeah, we could have had Reggie White.
Yeah, I mean, you could have Bruce Smith and Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and Andre Reed and all these guys, because none of them were going to go and make any kind of money anywhere else. So today's NFL is a different creature, man. And Brandon Beane, and I don't know if it comes from ownership or what, I'm a firm believer that you can't build both. You can't build a team that's going to go win a Super Bowl and a team that's going to be viable in 5 years. Like, you got to pick one, man. Because Howie Roseman, those dudes don't fall off trees, right? Like, that dude lucked into some moves. These guys fell to him in the draft that shouldn't have fallen to him. The Giants, for whatever reason, walked away from Saquon Barkley, and he had money to fit him in. Like, this stuff doesn't happen, man. And unless you've got a guy like Andy Reid that you can pair with a guy like Patrick Mahomes that just makes all the shit on your roster go away, or at least not look that bad, you got to pick one, man. Do you want to win a chip, or do you want to see what a 34-year-old Josh Allen looks like with a robust roster around him that you've given time to grow? Like, or, I mean, is Josh Allen even going to be here in 5 years if he hasn't won a title by then? Right? Like, would Bills fans really blame him?
Would he be the Matt Stafford of hey, I want to get out of here?
How much more do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right?
These are all conversations, like I said, where we started the show to where you're now bringing it. This is what's so important about this next window. They have to get it right. And so there's pressure on this franchise, and how you go about addressing this, whether it's interior pressure, edge pressure, how you spend, what you spend. This is, or do you take the conservative approach that you've always taken, or do you finally recognize, hey, I've built the core. All I have to do is re-sign the core and then just go get aggressive with my draft picks and say, fuck these picks. I don't care. I want to win right now in the next 2 years.
I mean, why can't Beane and McDermott look at Baltimore and just go, what can one buy us? Like, one title in Buffalo, you got a job for the next 10 years.
Oh my God.
Fuck all else.
I will live
right?
off of one Super Bowl title for the rest of my life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And they are uniquely positioned in a city where I don't think you can say that about 31 other teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, Buffalo Bills.
Oh, you win the first Super Bowl here?
You win a Super Bowl?
This isn't Philly. You're not Doug Peterson. You're not going to get fired after you don't win it for 3 years.
You win a Super Bowl here, like, make room next to Ralph because there's 2 more statues going up. One's Beane, one's McDermott.
Yeah.
Like that. Like, that's what they are. They will call their shots until they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I agree, and I look forward to seeing what their positions are going to be and how they address these needs as the offseason kind of unfolds. it's fun to think about. It's also it's refreshing to have a group of people show up and kind of commiserate with you as you talk about how hard this might be, how much harder this might be than everyone's giving it credit for. Guys, I love it. I love you all for showing up. I love you for being here in studio with us. Ryan, why don't you tell everybody where they can find your work?
Yeah, man, check me out at Ryan Lasel _RSN on X/Twitter/Blue Sky, whichever one you prefer. And make sure you follow #sports on YouTube if you've already followed these guys, Rock Power Report, as I'm kind of, I guess, teaching them how to handle live shows, which is a little bit different than their typical criteria. But make sure you follow these guys, Rock Power Report. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the page as well, so you get notified when they go live. Remember, you will not get notified when they go live unless you are subscribed to their channel. So make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the show tonight. Also, make sure you check out #sports, like and subscribe, so that you get notified when we go live as well. Looking forward to a cool off season and definitely a cool season. So again, appreciate everyone who has joined us tonight. And these guys are going to get better at this live show thing, man. They actually started on time tonight. Which
Ryan
was
Rhodes, I don't know what he's saying or not. I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these guys are going to get, I mean, you guys were on time tonight, which you weren't on time the last time we talked about this. Like, you had the tweet ready to go, Drew. Like, you guys are doing this thing, man. You're doing this thing. And
guys, we're professionals.
You
want to break down the fourth wall?
We're professionals.
So, Drew, before the show, you were talking about where your mom works, and then something's happening where your mom works. She's still there, and I saw my clock hit 8 o'clock and go, shut up, stop talking.
You had to say it twice.
Yeah, we don't care. I don't care what your mom's doing or where she's stuck right now. We have to go live.
Hey, I've got an update, guys. Yeah, we went live I literally, before we went live, I called my mom because she was involved in a prison incident at Collins Correctional Facility. And I got a text from her. Okay. Just got home. This came in 20 minutes ago. Turns out it was just one dorm, not the whole cell block. So it was only about 147 inmates. CERT teams are staying overnight just in case there's any more trouble. We'll see what kind of hell tomorrow brings. My mom was literally involved in a prison riot today, and it's not a riot. They don't call it a riot. What they call it is, well, there was an incident where a bunch of inmates kind of commandeered an entire cell block of a prison. And I literally come out of a meeting and I go to my cell phone and I see a voicemail from a number that I don't know called me and left me a voicemail. So I open the visual voicemail thing and I start listening to it, and it's my mom with a shaky voice going, "Hey, I've been shoved off into an ancillary building, and there's a whole incident happening here at the prison, and I'm locked down. And so now they've put me by myself in charge of putting together a triage center for the officers who are going to arrive and try to deal with whatever the situation is."
Yeah, it's like Oz.
And I go, do I have to come down there? Like, what? And she's like, so finally she calls me earlier today and goes, "No, I'm fine. I finally got my phone back. A CO was able to come in, like, get me, take me to my car, help me get my property, bring me back here because we still have to service the COs who are inside dealing with whatever this incident is." And the crazy part is, here's my mother going, "It'll be all right."
So I think I speak.
I go, "Mom, retire." She goes, "It'll be all right."
I speak for everybody. Cool story. Glad mom gear is good. But if you stuck around this long, make sure you tweet.
And watch Oz on HBO.
Make sure you tweet or leave in the comments celebrity crushes, both male and female, 25 years ago and present. Drew is locked in with Jane Fonda. No, not Jane Fonda. Diane Lane.
It's Diane Lane, or I swear to God, I riot.
Barbara Streisand? Like,
Guys,
So make sure you lock in your votes. Celebrity crushes, both male and
Spin
female.
Drew's
Chris,
mom is in prison.
I know Chris is an Idris Elba guy, even though
No.
Drew and I are advocating for Pierce Brosnan. Chris is an Idris Elba guy.
I have no idea who that is.
Chris is a post facelift Dane Cook guy. So make sure you leave your comments there as well and end it on a positive note, because somehow we got into a prison riot conversation.
The funniest response, the one that makes me laugh the most, when Spin found this out this week, he finally showed up this week to claim his prize. And if you don't email me, asshole, I'm not going to send you anything. Email us or DM us and let me know where I can send your product to. I want to hear celebrity crushes. And the one that makes me just like the one that gets the best reaction out of me gets a Q42, just gets something from our Q42 barbecue shop.
That you got some good ones, man.
Guys,
you got Anthony Hopkins rolling in already. I saw a Philip Seymour Hoffman reference earlier. Kudos to Ariola Grande for that one.
Richard Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Hey, Ryan Tongan coming in hard with Steve Buscemi. I would go Billy Madison, Steve Buscemi. Maybe Big Lebowski, Steve Buscemi, right? Like Donnie, you don't know what you're talking about.
Steve Buscemi has never and will never be a heartthrob, Ryan. I'm sorry. You can't speak this into existence. Pee Wee Herman? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That man does not ooze sex appeal. I'm sorry. What he oozes is, hey, I'm a guy in a nudie theater who somehow still gets arrested.
I don't think it was even a nudie theater.
Oh,
I think it was a regular movie theater.
Well,
That's why he got arrested.
I'm not gonna lie, that makes way more sense. I've been walking around for 30 years thinking Pee Wee Herman got arrested for flashing a guy at a nudie theater.
Ooh, Elizabeth Shue, good pull. All right, leave them in the comments. Drew and I will decide who wins the Q42. Again, it's about reaction, but let's be realistic on the reaction. You got to go deep in your bag on this one.
Weaver.
I mean, this is a whole nother show, man.
Yeah.
Like
Sigourney
this is a whole
Weaver,
nother show.
Ghostbusters.
Dude, we'll do this.
Yeah, like we could do a whole show on non-Bills topics and just have these conversations.
She was way hotter in
on
Alien than Ghostbusters. Guys, we got to get the hell out of here. We're already dragging this thing to hell. Thank you so much for showing up tonight and sticking around. We got to get out of here. I'm Drew Gear. That's Chris Kruger. That's Ryan Lasel. And this has been your Rock Power Report.
Go Bills.